Hello, everybody. Welcome tonight. We are here to talk about being creative in your spending plan. This has been brought to you by Westside Regional Center's Self-Determination Local Volunteer Advisory Committee. So thank you so much to them for having us talk about this with all of you tonight. Thank you for making time, and we're going to actually just get started. First, we're going to have a little bit of housekeeping. Let's see here. Let me push my screen up. If Lorna would be willing to do some housekeeping for interpretation, that would be really helpful.
Good evening, everybody. This will be a bilingual announcement. First, it will be in Spanish. Muy buenas noches para todas las personas que hablan español. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación simultánea al español por Zoom. Para acceder a la interpretación al español, que usted esté en su computadora, va a encontrar el icono de globo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Desde ahí selecciona su canal español. Si no quiere escuchar el audio original, seleccione silenciar audio original. Para las personas que están en tableta o en su teléfono celular, van a encontrar esta opción en los 3 puntitos al lado de su pantalla, donde dice más, el resto funciona igual. And for all our English speakers, there's Spanish interpretation being offered at the time in case there are comments or questions in Spanish and you would like to hear the interpretation into English. Please pick your channel. For people on your computer, you will find the globe icon at the bottom of your screen. From there, you can choose an English channel, and that way you can hear interpretation into English. And also this way, this may help you prevent maybe missing audio, not hearing things. For anyone on cell phone or tablet, you will find the interpretation option on the 3 dots on the side of your screen where it says more. And from there, you choose your channel, English. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Again, welcome. Hopefully everybody has selected the channel that they prefer, and we can get started. My name is Kelly Kulzer-Reyes, and I'm the Self-Determination Program Trainer for Disability Voices United. And Tim, did you want to introduce yourself since we're here together? You're good?
My name is Tim, and I am the co-director of empowerment programs at Disability Voices United.
Thank you so much, Tim. All right, I just have a little bit of additional housekeeping for us as well. And what I would like to make sure everyone can see is that we've got English and Spanish happening on the same screen for you. So the English is often outlined in blue and the Spanish in orange. English is often located on the left and the top of the screen, while Spanish is on the right and the bottom. And like Lorna said, you can choose your language with your interpretation symbol to select the language that you would like to hear. So one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is that spending plan. And the plan details exactly how your individual budget will be spent and how you'll meet your IPP goals, those individual person goals or program plan goals. One of the things that we really need to be careful of is making sure that everything that's in the spending plan is driven by your person-centered plan, right? That person-centered plan and the goals that you've created are key to all of this. You have to remember about your generic resources. You must include we must include that, well, the financial management service is now part of what your regional center is paying for you, but your independent facilitator is at a separate cost, and you have a line for that. And we must include all those taxes and insurance and all the other costs associated with hiring workers. So just a quick review, all right? An individual budget is that total amount of money that we're using to meet the goals of our person-centered planning. The spending plan is what's detailing the person-centered plan and how the funds will be used from your budget. So the plan is really like how money will be used, what it's going to connect to. And always in that spending plan, the things that are in your spending plan are connected to a goal in your person-centered plan. One thing that you're going to have as a cost will be your independent facilitator if you want one. If you are doing that for yourself or you have a family member who is supporting you doing that yourself, you do not need to pay that individual if they're willing to do that work for free. This is just a basic model of what Westside Regional Center's self-determination program spending plan might look like for you. So they may give this to you and then you'd fill in the information from this template into the different categories, including those service codes and the service, along with the frequency. Maybe you already have done this and maybe this is new to you, but it might look something like this for your regional center. Now, the steps that we're using to develop that spending plan are really, really important. So all the things that we're doing, all the services that we identify and the staff and the items that you need to purchase need to be in that person-centered plan in the goals, right? Those goals are what help you be creative with your spending plan. All right. So we're going to draft some goals together tonight. We're going to look at those goals together and we're going to put them into, you can type them into the chat when you're ready, and we will look at those together. So once you've identified the services and the staff and the items that you need in order to meet the goals in your person-centered plan, you can get help from your planner or your independent facilitator to find those activities in the community. Now, those activities in the community, maybe you're looking for social activities, or maybe you're looking for a music group that plays together. Maybe it's an informal drum circle or something like this that you really want to participate in. You can find those yourself. You might want to look at announcements in your community. You can look on Meetup or Eventbrite or any of those community connection ideas. And those are places where you might find some activities in your community. You're going to identify all of the things that cost money, and you're going to put those into your spending plan, always connecting them back to your original goals from your person-centered plan. You can probably see that there's a recurring theme here, right? If there's not a goal in the person-centered plan for what you want to be doing, there's nothing to spend money on. There's nothing that you need money for. So you need to make sure that that person-centered plan really reflects your life, really reflects what you want to be doing with your time. And in this case, the generic resources that are available are an amazing opportunity. They allow us to extend those funds as much as possible. When we can find low cost and no cost activities in those generic resources, we can actually extend the goals and extend that spending plan even further. We also want to make sure that the services that are in settings that are inclusive. And when they're talking about a list from DDS, what we're talking about is making sure they are home and community-based service, like final settings rule compliant. That's a really long way of saying that they are inclusive. They are things you get to choose, that they are meeting that particular rule. And then you've got the items in your spending plan will be assigned a correct budget category and service code. Now, if you remember from the slide before, we had lists of different service categories. There were 3 on the screen, and then there are different service codes. And if you're unfamiliar with those, your independent facilitator and your service coordinator should be able to help you get that information. Now, in the spending plan, you cannot have more in your spending plan than has been approved in your certified budget. This is a review, I'm sure, for most of you. The services, items, and activities in your spending plan can only relate to your IPP goals or those goals that are disability related. Okay, they're not going to fund things that are a hobby or something that we just enjoy to do. There's a phrase that they like to use that with no therapeutic benefit, it's only recreational benefit. Those are things they don't want to have in that spending plan. So if there are things that have therapeutic benefit or have a positive impact on your person-centered plan goals, you want to make sure that those goals are written in a way that you can be really creative with that, with the services that are connected to them. The services and activities and anything that's purchased must fit the waiver. You have to make sure that the federal government will fund. There's a list of those services available, and I highly recommend having a copy of Disability Voices United's new Think Outside of the Box book, because there's a whole section in there about things that are allowable and things that are not allowable. You must use generic resources before allocating any monies on this from the spending plan from your budget, right? So you want to make sure that your generic resources are used first. And then, like always, just like in the traditional system, all of our services are going to meet the home and community-based services final settings rule. So in order to be creative in our spending plans, we really have to be writing amazing person-centered plans, okay? Those person-centered plans talk about the person and what those goals are, what the hopes and the dreams are, and all of those pieces. And one way that we do that is that we connect the things that we want to be doing to the challenges that we face with our disabilities. So there needs to be a disability related reason for the goal in order to fund the activity or support. And the way that we write those goals are really important to being able to be creative. All right, so goals leading to spending plan creativity. There are basically 2 kinds of goals. You can have a really specific and focused goal, or you can have a really broad goal that has more flexibility written into it. So think for just a second. You're going to pause and think about different kinds of goals that you already have in your person-centered plan now, and think about how you might want to rewrite or add to that goal in order to be creative about things you might want to fund with it. So take just a minute. If you have an idea, throw it in the chat right now so I can see what your goals are, and I can take a look and see if I can use any as an example. Okay, write down one goal that you have in the chat right now. Everybody, try it. See what you can do. I'm going to write one in there for you, and I'm going to use my daughter's name. Amelia Bill. Okay, so I see a goal of obtaining employment. That's a great one. Use my communication device to order lunch. Great work. Let's see. Improve fine motor skills. looks like there are lots of things that we have in here that can be goals. So if you notice, the way that I wrote mine for my daughter was Amelia will practice adaptive skills. That could be communication skills. That could be fine motor skills during cooking classes. Now, if I say cooking classes, the only thing I'm going to be able to fund under there for adaptive skills practice will be that cooking class. But what I want to do is make it broader so that I can say Amelia will practice her adaptive skills and communication turn taking by taking classes that she enjoys and chooses with appropriate supports. So some of those things that we're talking about now, when we're thinking about our goals, we're going to be practicing with some more using more uses of those goals now. Okay. So if you know exactly what you want to do to meet the goal, you can create a SMART goal, right? Those specific, measurable, attainable, related, and time-bound goals that we're familiar with from the IEP world. We can take those goals and make them into a very specific person-centered planning goal. That's one way we can do this. Another way that we can do it, maybe we want, in writing what I just said, and that sometimes what we're looking at here is that the SMART goal, I have an example for you here of a SMART goal. Amelia wants to participate in dance activities and classes at least once per week to practice her adaptive skills and enhance her aerobic exercise. Do you see how I put in bold those specific pieces inside of that SMART goal? What I'm trying to do there is address the disability portion, which for her are her adaptive skills and her stamina with aerobic exercise, because she has hypotonia, and that helps makes it hard for her to keep a lot of energy through activities. But she also loves to dance, and that's a motivating factor there. Maybe you want something like cooking activities to practice adaptive skills, but maybe not aerobic exercise, because I don't think you're going to have cooking skills connected to aerobic exercise. That won't make sense. So things that we're looking at that are disability related are the struggles in transitions between preferred and non-preferred activities, right? Those types of concerns or challenges are what could be addressed through those creative strategies. Practice and turn taking, like now it's my turn, now it's your turn, we're going to talk back and forth. And then needing motivating physical activity, because when your body gets tired quickly, it's easier to watch YouTube instead of getting motivated to go out and go to a dance class. So some of those, like the dance class is really fun, but if someone tried to make me go to something I didn't enjoy, I would struggle with that as well. All right. So we've got, if you want flexibility to try different activities, like you don't know which activity you want to be able to participate in yet, you might want to create a general goal with lots of possible ways to meet the goal. Those are really important when you've got some ideas, but you're not quite sure how to, which ones are going to work yet. So we have got these two goals next to each other here, right? We've got a broad goal. Let's take a look. And a broad goal. Evita wants to participate in her community and practice her adaptive skills in meaningful ways that she chooses with appropriate supports. So we've got participate in the community and practice adaptive skills. Those are both things that we can work on that are kind of a challenge for Evita. Some of the generic resources or natural supports for this might be using public transportation, maybe finding faith community options. Maybe her synagogue really wants to start including people with disabilities differently. And so they're going to have a buddy system, and you could use that as a resource. Community education is always a possibility, because your community probably has a park system, and maybe they have some good classes available. City of Commerce, for example, has a pretty amazing water polo program that comes to mind. I don't know what things are specifically awesome about West Side, or if you're not from West Side, in your community, but why don't you put one thing in your community that you know of right now in the chat to share that resource with the rest of us who are here today, because we can always like keep a big old list of generic resources that might be helpful. Parks and recreation offerings, I think, are an undervalued resource. If you're in a place like Santa Clarita, they have the Seasons magazine that shows where all the pools are, and they have adaptive swimming programs available through the County of Los Angeles. Other areas are likely going to have similar resources. We just have to be creative to find them. One of the things, I actually live in Bakersfield. One of the really cool things we have near us is a disc golf or frisbee golf course. We can get our exercise with those generic resources and spend less of the budget, but then we're going to spend the money on the things that the plan can fund, like a community living coach. And I put the codes in here for you, so those are really exciting for you. Dance could be under community integration, horse-related classes, swim classes, drama activities, cooking classes, anything that helps meet the goal and is also an allowable expense can be integrated here. In the case of my own daughter, who's in the self-determination program, we use a community living coach. That individual can be at home and support her with the adaptive skills that we're struggling with within that environment, but she can also support Amelia in the community. And that combination is key for our family. If you want someone to both be in home and out in the world, you want to use that 320 code, because that means you can have them both in your own home and outside of your home. So those are some of the things that have been really helpful in our own plan for our family. Tim, do you think this is a good place to stop and ask for questions, or do you see any questions in the chat? I'm not monitoring the chat as I go. Or do you want me to go through one more? Let's go. I don't have the ability to unmute you, Jordan, but why don't you go ahead, Jordan, and ask a question? Go ahead.
Yes. Am I unmuted? Very good. Hello.
Hello.
Two things you said. You mentioned, a couple things. Eva wants to participate, that she chooses. You could take, I believe you could take out that word, because the idea is person-centered plan. So obviously person-centered, so it sounds to me a little repetitive. What she chooses, that's just sounds repetitive. But more importantly, you said that if you use generic resources, you can have more money in your spending plan to do other things. It makes it sound like regional center. It's just giving you X number of dollars, you know, $75,000. And if you decide to go out and buy books, then you have less money, as opposed to if you decided to check books out of the public library. I think that's what it sounds like from what you're saying. You'll have more money if you use, you just said if you have more money if you use generic resources in your spending plan. That's not what I'm understanding that to be the case.
I'm not quite understanding your question about the.
My question was, well, you said that if you were to use generic resources,
yes,
and you would have more money from in your spending plan to spend on other things.
Right.
Now, wait, right, but that sounds like, you know, Center is giving you X number of dollars, like, I don't know, 75,000, X number of dollars. And if you take that money and you decide to, as an example, check out buy books from a bookstore, then you would have less money than if you use a generic resource like checking them out from the library. You would have less money, but that's not how it works. They don't just give you an X number of dollars. They give it based on what you need and what you want. So if you need to take paid dance classes, like your daughter wants to do a dance class, and they would pay for that and that's acceptable, they would pay for that, as opposed to if you found it for free, they just wouldn't budget for that.
So that's not exactly what happens. So what would actually does happen is if I mean, I wouldn't probably buy books with a spending
No,
plan.
it's an example.
Okay, so in a dance situation, if I can find a lower cost dance class, I can send the community living coach with her for more hours. So I'm still spending the same amount of funds. I'm just using more of the funds for staff instead of for things that I can, if I can get them at low cost or no cost options. And we
Isn't
are
staffing under a
required-
different code? Staffing's under a different code,
Staff in this case would be under 320.
right?
320, that's the community living supports.
Come on, okay.
Yep. And that's as somebody who could work with you in your home or out in the community.
Okay. But once you just stated, hey, I'm going to be taking these paid classes. I'll need more hours for staffing because, hey, 30 hours a week isn't enough. I need 50 to get the things done I want. And they would approve 50 as opposed to saying, you know, they would approve that extra hours because you need it. If that's what you need, 50 hours. You'd say, and you find your budget, hey, I need 50 hours a week or 60 hours.
That's not
People need
exactly how it works,
24/7.
but I'm gonna let Bronwyn ask her question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
I'll
ahead.
mute myself. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bronwyn,
Hi.
hello.
Thank you for this. Just to, I think, piggyback on his question. Are you saying that if we use generic resources that are low cost,
Mhm.
that's not, we're not going to be using self-determination funding to fund that,
Correct.
but we would be using in lieu of spending it on like a swim class, say we found an adaptive swim class that we can afford and it's a generic resource, but
Mhm.
we need support services in order to access it. We wouldn't be funding the swim class. We would be out of pocket for that, but we would be able to use that money instead to support attending it. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right.
Thank you. That's it.
You're welcome. I see one more hand up. Behnaz?
Hi,
Hello.
yes, thanks for taking my question. Sorry, my video is off because I'm driving. So I had a quick question. I'm trying to get my son into the self-determination program, and we're at the point where we're making our spending plan. And I was just wondering, like, if I wanted to, put on there, like, for him to get speech therapy, would I be able to do that? Because, like, the person I want to use is not contracted with our insurance, so I'd be paying out of pocket for it.
It's the same.
And if
thing
I
with-
can, what do
yeah,
I?
uh-huh.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I
No,
was
no,
saying,
no,
if you're calling it speech therapy, if you're having a speech therapy, then you're gonna have to go through the whole process, just like you would in the traditional system. Okay, so
Okay.
if your goal is to have speech therapy and you want the speech therapy and you want to be able to pay for it through SDP instead of through the traditional system, first, I mean, there are some questions I think we have first, right? For example, is he in the school system? If the school system is your first generic resource, they're going to have to say, we don't do that. And then gives you that in writing. Then your private insurance would have to say, no, this person is not covered. So that you need that in writing. You're going to have the same things with your speech therapy that you have in the traditional system to have them approved as you would in the self-determination system. Now, if you were
Okay.
instead going to not have speech therapy, but you want to practice communication, and one of your goals is, I'm going to call your son Johnny because I've never met him. Okay.
Okay.
So Johnny,
sure.
Johnny will have conversations with friends of his with a communication coach for support. Then you could fund that communication coach or that activity where he has the opportunity to practice his speech there. But as soon as you want speech therapy and you call it speech therapy, you're using the speech therapy code, then you have to go through the same process that you would in the traditional system. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, like, instead of, you can call it communication coach.
I
Okay.
think coaching
Yeah, I
is
get
one
it.
of the easiest way to be creative in the
Okay.
self-determination program. Maybe you need a cooking coach.
Okay.
Maybe you'll need a life
Okay.
skills coach. Maybe, I mean, that's one way,
Oh.
because if you look at
Okay.
the code number 331, communication
Yeah.
skills, it's in that section.
Uh-huh.
So I would use the
Yeah.
words that are in that definition to create
Yeah.
the job description that you want to have for that
Okay.
position. Okay. So if you're,
Okay. Okay.
hopefully that helps the whole group get a kind of an idea of, use the language that DDS has created for the codes in your job description. Right? That's one way to be creative about how you meet your goals. And I would highly recommend reading through the definition for community living supports, that's 320, and community integration supports, that's 331, really carefully to see what's allowable. What can I do with this? Because you don't want to break the rules. You want your goals to be met that are in your person-centered plan. That's our goal. For those of us who are parents and have children, like my daughter is going to be 11 this summer, that's my goal for her. I want her to meet the goals that are in her person-centered plan. I'm not trying to game a system. I want to make sure that those goals are related to her disability, and that I understand that those are the things I can fund to help her meet those goals. I hope that helps.
Hi, Kelly. Just wanted to pop in and let you know there are a lot of questions in the chat. I don't know if you wanted to save them. until
You know
later.
what? Maybe let's do this. I've got 2 more people with hands up.
Sounds
Let
good.
me go to the next couple of slides, and then we'll brainstorm. If you can help me monitor the chat, that would be
Already.
really helpful. I want to get to all the questions. That's my favorite part. I don't really love slides that much because I love to help people brainstorm, but I do want to make sure that we get through. So if the 2 with hands up, please be patient with me. I'm going to keep going with the slides, and then we'll get to, I think, Arin and Nili in just a couple of minutes, okay? Thank you, friends. All right, so here are some examples of things that you cannot cover. All right, this might help some of you and might answer some questions. You cannot cover these things. They're not allowed. You can't cover rent and mortgage. You can't cover food. However, many people who are regional center clients qualify for programs like CalFresh. That would be your generic resource. Okay, so if you qualify for CalFresh and you need food, that would be how you would, that's the generic resource you would use for something like that. The purchase or lease of vehicles, you can't do that. You cannot, a general home improvement that is not related to disability, they're not going to pay for that. Tickets and entrance fees, that's one of them that's hardest, I think, for a lot of families. I think many people are kind of disappointed with that as an area that cannot be paid for, but that is one that has become kind of a non-starter there for us. And then this could change, and there could be more of those in the future. We have, and then we've got some natural supports and generic resources. And then can be kind of how your natural supports, generic resources, and the self-determination program can all work together. So this might actually address Jordan's comment and question from earlier. So you might have a ride to an event from a family member or from a community living coach. Maybe you know what you want to go to, and that's how you get your transportation under control. Perhaps you're going to participate in a community education cooking class, and maybe it's a low cost or a free option. And that, if it's low cost, you could pay it out of your self-determination budget, assuming that meets one of your person-centered plan goals. Maybe you want to check on Meetup or on Eventbrite for community event options that are interesting to you. There are all kinds of possibilities around the area that might be something you would like to do. In Bakersfield, we have something called First Fridays downtown. Your community might have something where all the community comes together maybe there's a farmer's market, or maybe there are bands to listen to somewhere close by. Those kinds of community events might be your destination for the ride that you get from your community living coach, and then you meet up with your friends once you get there. Now, I really love our disc golf courses. I'm going to be a big proponent of outdoor activities that are free to us, because I want to extend that budget as much as I can. The budget is like based on your needs, but I can extend those funds if I'm finding things that are lower cost or no cost. Excuse me, I can't get over my cold yet. So those, maybe you get a couple of discs at Target on clearance, they're on an end cap, and you go to your park with your community living coach, and you meet five of your best friends there, and you're playing disc golf together. Those are great uses of those self-determination funds. And of the things in this list, the part that costs money is the wage of your community living coach, and possibly the community education class. Everything else is a free resource. Okay, so that's something to consider. Like, how can I make my, whatever the amount is for my budget, last just that much longer? Okay. All right, so there's some generic resources that you want to make sure you're thinking about. The rule is that it's the same as in the traditional system. You still have to use those generic resources first. So if you're still in the school district, those are generic resources you will use first. If you have private insurance, or you've got the secondary of Medi-Cal, or Medi-Cal is your primary, or you have Medi-Medi, there are lots of ways that generic resources are going to have to pay for things. And the same thing happens whether it's traditional system or self-determination program. Department of Rehabilitation, that's something you're going to want to think about. Once you hit adulthood, maybe you want to be going to school further, and you need to get the DOR, Department of Rehabilitation, person for your area involved in your planning, because maybe you need those educational classes paid for. Maybe you need a new computer. Maybe Department of Rehabilitation can help you with things that you don't even know about yet. IHSS is another generic resource that will be asked about while you're planning. So keep those things, so in-home supportive services, for those of you who are not familiar with that particular program. All right, and now this is from Westside's website, okay? They have a whole area of more examples of community resources that weren't on my list. We have ABA, medical, dental, vision resources, mental health resources, parent advocacy groups. Let's see, I've said some of these already. Utility assistance, transportation assistance, legal and advocacy resources, CCS, if you qualify for that. Now, just because they're on here doesn't mean you can use them. You might not qualify for all of these things. That's okay. You do need to try to utilize the ones that you do qualify for. All right, and they have a link for you right here, and hopefully somebody, I'm hoping Ed can put this link into the chat in case anybody needs that one, or I think you've got the link to the slides in the chat as well, so that should be helpful. All right, so officially, and I know you're going to say, but yes, they do this, but we're just hear me out here. So the regional center does not, let's see here, let me get this down, officially approve your spending plan. They don't approve it, okay? They don't approve your services and supports in your spending plan. They don't approve how much of their funding you allocate or you put into different services and supports. That's not what they're supposed to be. That's not what they're supposed to be. That's not what they're doing. However, they are responsible to ask questions about specific items to make sure they're allowed in the waiver, to ask if you've used those generic resources that we were just talking about. Make sure that you're using those first, and you can say, I've already exhausted these generic resources. We don't have another option. So remember that payer of last resort part. That's what we're talking about here. About asking questions about where you'll be receiving the services. They have to make sure that you are meeting the home and community-based services final settings rule, so that you have choice, you have autonomy, you have the ability to make a burrito at 3 a.m. if that's what you want to be doing. I don't like to eat at 3 a.m., but somebody might. So you're going to ask how they're going to ask how these services relate to your IPP goals. And hopefully your IPP goals look really similar or are the same as your person-centered plan goals. My regional center does a really good job of including my person-centered goals for my daughter in my daughter's IPP. They're all there. Hopefully everyone else's regional center is doing the same thing. They will also ask you to change your spending plan to meet these requirements. That's the part where people feel like my spending plan isn't approved. Well, if it doesn't meet the requirements, they're trying to make sure that you do meet those requirements so that we're being good stewards of that funding source. Okay, so here are some sample goals and a little bit of practice. Felix will practice communication skills with peers. I think this one might be a good example for if you're doing the communication idea. Communication skills with peers as he builds lifelong friendships with appropriate supports. Okay. And then, so if you were in Felix's situation, you can put these in the chat now. What would Felix be doing in his spending plan to meet that goal? Perhaps he'd hire a communication coach, right? Perhaps he would get together with friends of his out in the community with appropriate supports. And in my case here, my example of appropriate support could be the communication coach, could be an adaptive skills coach, could be a community living coach. And then depending on what you are hoping to pay people who are supporting you or your loved one, if you're a parent, of course, if these people are supporting you or your loved one, you want to make sure that you can pay them a wage that will keep them as an excellent employee, right? Like you want to make sure that they can afford to be reliable, that they can make sure that they're able to pay for their food and their shelter. So one of the really big draws for this program is that we don't have to go through with the vendor rate. We can pay people the rate that we see as appropriate for their skills. So did anyone, I'm not sure if you see, let's see here. So we've got the communication skills. And then now here's another one. Citlali will participate in summer camp opportunities that help her improve her adaptive skills with appropriate supports. So we've got the specific idea of wanting to go to summer camp, and that and here it says opportunities, summer camp opportunities. So maybe she wants to go to 3. Then you might want to say she wants to go to 3 of them to help her improve her adaptive skills. And then those adaptive skills could be turn taking. They could be transitions between activities. They could be effective listening skills, communication, all the pieces that come together to help us work in the world, right? Those skills that some of us take for granted sometimes. All right, so you can write down your own goal and the way that you would like to meet the goal in the chat, and then we can start asking and answering some questions here. I think that's the questions area. So I'm going to stop my share, if that's okay with you. And I'm going to let my, let's see, Arin Rao, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, Here, put my camera on.
Hello.
I just wanted to, hi, I wanted to, not as much. This is
Hello,
my
friend.
son. Hello. Okay, let me talk. The very first question about like, well, if you need something, they'll just give you more money. My experience is like, there's a finite amount they're gonna give you, and you could argue for more, but it's probably likely they're not gonna give you more unless you have some good reason. So there is a finite amount of
Right.
money. They're gonna say like, okay, based on what we think, this is your budget. And you can probably haggle, but it's not gonna go up that much more. And then the second thing about like OT or speech therapy, in my experience, yes, if like I have my son sees an occupational therapist, but they work on executive functioning. So I am paying her for executive functioning, and that works in my plan, and I'm able to get that funded with my self-determination budget. So like you said, like speech therapy could also be like it's a speech therapist, but they could be working on social skills.
Sure.
So that's been my experience, but I also have been able to get some occupational therapy funded by showing them that the school district is not providing it and the insurance is also not providing it.
Yes.
So, and then I had to have the occupational therapist provide a notes, like a
Explanation.
evaluation and like a
Yes.
full evaluation. And then the committee reviewed it and approved it for 6 months. And then I'll probably have to go through that again. So just in my experience, and then the last tip, and these are more tips and not questions. I hope that's okay.
You're fabulous. Thank you.
The last tip is my first year, I had a lot of different codes, and every time, and I'm terrible at budgeting and being like, okay, I think I'm going to need exactly this amount for social skills, and then I'm going to need this amount for
Yes.
my community integration specialist, who's the aide that comes to help. So this year I put everything under community integration. So that way, under 320. So that way, when I call Mainsail, and Mainsail seems to be really tricky. They like want a lot of things from you every time you want to like move one penny. So if you can avoid having different codes and just have one code for all your things, it's going to help you a lot when you decide you need more money for your dance class and you don't need as much for your art class.
Exactly. I was going to give the same tip. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those were excellent tips. Thank you so much.
good.
I'm so glad you shared that. I really appreciate that. I say Nili or Neely. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly.
Hi, it's
Hello.
Neely. I'm trying to
Neely.
see if I can figure out how to turn on my camera or something too. So I hope that my questioning isn't inappropriate in that we're a little bit one step behind. We want to go the self-determination route, and we have yet to even, I want to say that we were approved like in maybe August, and we have yet to make anything happen. And I don't know how to kick the can down the road. And if you have any general thoughts on that, and mostly the things that I'm just trying to get funded right now are what is it called? My husband's next to me. What's it called that no one's already doing? The
life coaching.
yeah, the life coaching and but communication, like there's a group that he's part of.
Okay.
And so far social skills, and so far we can't, like, it's just slower than molasses, and I can't figure, two of us are working on it and we can't navigate it.
So as far as the question is with the spending plan part, like being creative in the spending plan, I think one of the and you're talking about a barrier that you're in front of right now. And that's actually the topic we get to talk about next week. So hopefully you'll come back and talk to us then too. No, but it's great. I mean, I understand you're having trouble and I'd like to be helpful, but I think one of the questions for the part I can take out of it for the context for tonight is that if you're stuck at any place in your in your area, and you're not having luck with your service coordinator, and your independent facilitator or you don't have an independent facilitator, then I
Right.
think the next part for you is to really to reach out to your service coordinator's program manager, that might be the next person, to see what's the bump and how can I help you? Not in terms of my service coordinator's not doing anything. We don't need that.
Right.
It doesn't help anybody. But what does help is we feel like we're stuck and we don't know what to do next. I would highly recommend attending your local advisory committee. Like for West Side, that's the group that's paying for tonight's event.
Oh, right.
They have questions and answers. Everyone's there at the same time. They have a public comment section. You could even just go and ask, what do we do next? And then somebody from your regional center can get back in contact with you. They might not be able to get into contact with you right that second, but you'd have someone, like a real human, to reach out to in that case. That would be my recommendation there. Does that help a little?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I see a Marie Field, and I know that we've got the chat, so I actually want to look at Ed. I can't see you, Ed. Thank you, my friend. Do you have any questions that you want me to focus on in the chat? I can't monitor both. I'm not that good.
No worries. I've been monitoring all of them and I have them in a little document. I can ask them for you. Why don't you get last one from Marie, and then
Okay.
I will prioritize these.
Perfect. Marie, go ahead. I'm going to turn off my video for just a second, but I am here.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Marie, you
Hopefully,
sound great.
maybe. All right, great. I have three things, kind of. One is, how do you handle items? So for example, my son has really heavy sensory needs. I've been looking online, and I think there's an actual roller that you go through that I've seen in some OT clinics, but that I think would be so helpful at home, but I can't afford it. Would that be something that you can ask for? Because I know they do say mostly things you don't get, right?
Well, I don't think I'd say there's a mostly, because we've got lots of different regional centers, and I don't know what West Side's answer to that question would be. But I think this is what I would say. If you have a goal in your person-centered plan and it is an allowable expense, then you're in a good place. And that goes for anything. That goes for a purchased item, that goes for your staff, that goes for the whole program. Now, if there's just remember, if it's a one-time purchase, the next year, those funds could be removed from your total budget.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Because that need will then have been met, and then you would still have that particular item. So it's something to consider, but I would make sure that if my goal is to have a very sensory intensive roller, I would probably make sure that my OT or my PT or someone thinks this is a great idea, although you shouldn't have to. And I'd make a goal that says, Marie will use this kind of item, on a regular basis to improve sensory integration skills.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I would deal with that. But if you don't have a goal for it, Marie, there's no need to have it in the spending plan. Like, the goal is key to your creativity at all times.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. And we're all taxpayers, friends, right? Like, we know that we don't want people buying like random stuff. We want to be good stewards of the funds too. That's really important to all of us. We know that. Go ahead, Marie. What else do you have?
Yeah, well, and this might be a different week, but how do you handle if the school will not give you proof that they're not providing for your son? Because my IEP is, I mean, I fought all year
Mhm.
my son needs a lot more help. And then, of course, the regional center goes, well, the school has to, admit that they're not giving him what he needs. And the school's like, well, we're not writing
No,
that letter.
anytime when I have something like that, what I like to do is write a letter and say, if you do not respond in 5 business days, I will take that to mean that you agree with me in my explanation. Because they're not going to respond, but then you'll have proof that they didn't respond. And then you have that backup with writing. And that would go for pretty much anything as well.
That's huge. Okay, thank you for that.
Just that skill set of saying, I understand that you are not going to approve funding for X, Y, or Z. That could, and then just say, and if I did not hear from you within 5 business days, I will assume that you, sorry guys, my daughter's now home too. So all 172 of you can say hi to Amelia. Amelia, say hello. Everybody say hi. There you go. Thanks everybody. You're so sweet. So
All
yeah,
right, so that was it.
that's what I would
lot.
do. And that's overall actually a pretty good skill to develop. And it may work with the regional center, it may not, but at least you'd have a paper trail and say, I tried.
Yep.
Okay, thank you
That's
so
great.
much. Ed,
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for asking your question. Who's next, Ed?
So if it's all right, we're going to jump over to the questions. And folks, just a reminder, I say this in the chat at the beginning of every event, but I like to say it at the top as well of asking questions. We get a lot of questions. We're going to try to get through as many of them as possible. I do keep these questions, so rest assured that we are tabulating them at the very least. So I have a question from Stephanie, who asks, can you explain the 25% fee we are now charged by our FMS for hiring employees versus vendors? Our FMS changed rules and said to be a vendor, they have to have a business license, workers' comp insurance, etc.
I wish I could explain that. Your FMS is going to have to address that concern, but I understand your frustration. Increasing those rates, especially when they're going to have the 099 vendor option, is frustrating to all of us. And I don't have an answer, but I'm sorry that you have frustration. That doesn't really help you.
Can I try to answer it a little bit?
Go for it, Judy.
So if you use the sole employer model, I'm just telling you that 25% is not there, that you can calculate out very specifically all your taxes and all of your expenses in advance in your spending plan. That's what my son does. My son's FMS, we're using the sole employer model, does not add any extra percentage onto anything. We take care of the liability insurance and workers' comp through our homeowners. So there is a way around that 25%, folks, and it significantly reduces your costs.
I appreciate that addition. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you so much, Judy. Also, just a reminder, folks, to please try and minimize crosstalk. Please don't have any crosstalk. It makes things much harder for our interpreters, and it makes the captioning, which some of us rely on, totally unusable. So just a reminder about that. I have several questions from several different people, basically boiling down to how do I fit, or can I fit, paid vacation days for my staff or my loved one's staff into my spending plan?
Tim might be a better person to answer that question. Tim, do you have ideas about how to put that paid time off into your staff's, into your budget for your staff? I don't have full-time staff. So the paid sick leave is just part of, the regular math for sick, because you have to provide sick leave, but isn't it 1 hour for every 30 hours worked? Should someone correct me if that's wrong? And nobody's going to correct me. Great. Hopefully I'm not lying to you. Jan, can you? Do you know? You're muted. No, you're muted. There.
Did I unmute? Okay.
You did.
Did it work? Okay. Basically, because I did have a family ask about this and they wanted it, and we were told that the self-determination regulations do not allow it. paid vacations. I don't know what other people are hearing, but that's what I was told, that we couldn't do it.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that there must be different rules for different places, but Tim, are you typing an answer? Yes. I would like to patiently wait then.
Why don't you go on to another question? So just because you have not a lot of time left, and so I want to make, there's a million questions.
Okay,
And then Tim, just let us know when you're done.
that's perfect. Let's go with Vicky, and then Ed, do you want to get another one? Okay, Vicky Dyson, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, sorry that I was late as well. Living out here in Malibu, my house is almost literally underwater. And it's raining again. But anyway, good evening, everyone. I kind of got in on the end when you were talking. I'm kind of in the same boat as everyone else, a little bit confused on how to make the most out of my son's budget. And once again, I just got the my son, I've been paying for speech out of pocket, which to date now is over $40,000. And so I finally was able to get the regional center to, now they were saying that if in fact that they're always the last result, the insurance would be billed first, but the insurance is sending me to areas that are like 4 hours away from where I live. And so my thing is, I can't justify driving 4 hours for a speech lesson that's only 45 minutes. And I kind of caught the end of something you were saying about how you can work that in to get those additional dollars or that additional time under a specific code. And I think you said either 331, I think you said was the code. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And then do you have any suggestions? Because I then, of course, applied I was getting insurance through my son's insurance, but that was during the time that my son was in school. So while he was in school, of course, they weren't paying for the speech. And then after the fact, I had to come out of pocket and pay for the speech. However, when the insurance started to pay for the speech, they were 9 months in arrears from paying the speech therapist. So she then, of course, doesn't want to work and not get paid. So she dropped us as patient. Do you have any suggestions now, because I have applied and got a referral back, but again, they're sending me 4 hours away. Do you have any suggestions of what I could do or what I should do?
I don't know about the 4 hours away part, but
Mhm.
what I was talking about with 331 is that within the definition of that code, there's an area that talks about communication skills.
Okay.
That's not the same as speech therapy.
Mhm.
We're talking about developing communication skills.
Mhm.
So if you go to the definitions page, which is available on the DDS website and, you know, probably all over the place, maybe someone has it on hand and they can put it into the chat while we're still here. That definitions page states what I'm talking about. Like, these are things you can use to
Okay.
create your job description. Or maybe it's a community integrator or a communication coach who is working with your son. I don't have a solution for the 4 hour drive away. That sounds like an unrealistic burden on families. And I would share that with your regional center.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. I wish I had better answers for that part. Ed, can you give me another question from your list?
Sure can. I've got nothing but good questions over here. So one of the other repeated questions that we've gotten in the chat is regarding gym membership and personal training. How does that work into a spending plan? How can people connect that to their goals?
So if the goal is to be more fit with appropriate supports or to get better exercise with someone who knows how to help you do a better job, that's the kind of goal you would already have in your person-centered plan. And then one of the ways to meet that goal would probably be a gym membership, a personal trainer, those types of services that you would want to look at. Now, for some places, because a gym membership is often a recurring charge, they're struggling to have their FMS pay for it. It's not that your spending plan can't include it. The regional center's even okay with it. Everything's fine. Then you send it over to your FMS. And that's when that part becomes a little more complicated. So what I do when I have when I'm an independent facilitator for a family, we try to communicate with that gym prior to putting the gym's name into the spending plan and make sure they know what the challenges might be with your financial management service. And then make sure that that part is that they know that they're going to have to communicate with someone in the billing department at that financial management service. And those two people have to figure that out. So I don't think it's that people can't put it into their spending plans, but that it's kind of a challenge sometimes. Tim, go ahead. What did I miss?
For my first year, I had no problem at getting my gym membership paid in my spending plan and my FMS, and I reached out to my gym and they agreed that we could pay annually.
That's a very important solution. Paying annually with the help of the FMS has helped mine as well. And actually, one of the people I work with actually got a job at his gym. So he's working there and gets a free membership. And so now he has a generic resource because his job is working at the place where he works out. So there's another possible employment opportunity there for individuals who'd like to do that. I hope that helps. Ed, can I go to one person with a hand up? Okay, Raghu. I'm sorry if I said your name incorrectly.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. Yeah, hi, Kelly. Thank you for taking the time to educate us and, time
I'm
to.
happy you're
answer our
here.
questions.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's great. So, my situation is my son, he's a client of the regional center, SARC, and he turned 19 last year, and he's still in school because, he's slow to, we kind of slowed him down. We didn't want to rush him through all the academics. He's still in school. And so now we are in the negotiating stage with the regional center for the SDP budget, certified budget. But, we feel we are kind of running into a wall because they have this set formula. They say, 24 hours per day, and we are getting IHSs. But my son has sleep issues. He sleeps just 4 or 5 hours a day, and it might trigger seizures. So we are worried about that. So we calculated all that, but still we're running into sort of a brick wall with the regional center in terms of budgeting. He's still in school, which he's really not because it's a special school, just 2 hours per day. And IHS, is there some way, creatively we can use the spending plan to get more budget? Because I live in San Jose, everything is very expensive here. All the providers, they charge a lot.
Well, thank you for calling from San Jose. I think that's awesome that you've joined us. So I appreciate that first. I think that as long as he's in school and that's a generic resource, that one of the first thing we need to do is make sure they understand how many hours he's at school. You've already got a schedule, but this really is budget. It's not the spending plan, right? The spending plan's not going to, it's going to be based on how much funding is available in that budget. So the first question is, why are they struggling with understanding that he's in school for 2 hours and that you've documented sleep concerns.
Right.
So your IHSS is an overnight allocation.
Right.
There shouldn't be those other concerns.
Okay.
But if he's still in school, then you're looking at that generic resource that's going to needs maybe more explanation.
Okay.
And I don't know the situation, so I hate to say too much about like what they could or couldn't do. But I think the most important thing is to look at your person-centered plan and look at the goals that he has. What should he be doing now based on his person-centered plan? And then find things in the traditional system that connect to that.
Okay.
Then have those things determine where you're going to find those funds.
Okay. I had just one more follow-up question.
Yes.
This is regarding the ADU. If the client is not staying in an ADU, does that limit our budget in any way, or
If
that
they are not, excuse
if
me.
they don't stay, if he's living with us and
Uh-huh.
we don't have an ADU, adjacent dwelling unit.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah. So does that limit our budget with the regional center?
I don't know about that, but there's a new service code that you should be looking at, and it's the family community,
Like coordinated family support? Yeah.
thank you, coordinated family supports.
Okay.
And I don't know that you have vendors yet, but that's the one that I think I would explore
Okay. Thank
for
you.
those needs. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
You're so welcome. I wish I knew everything. So sorry.
Thank you.
Ed, give me another question, my friend.
Kelly, can we play a game called Is It Covered?
Oh, I love that game.
Sounds good.
Let's all play. Let's thumbs up or thumbs down if you think it's covered.
I love that.
And we'll have everyone click.
That
Okay,
sounds
ready?
Sounds great. All right,
Yes.
folks. Our first question, as far as is it covered, can
Yeah.
it be part of a spending plan, is can alternative medicines not covered by insurance be part of a spending plan if the health-related goal is to be seizure-free?
Ooh, is it covered? Hey, that's a tough one. Is that covered? I don't have a good answer. I think they're going to send it to their clinical team. So I'm going to give you a halfway, because what the regional center is going to do is make sure that they send it to their clinical team. Their clinical team will evaluate. They will not find it to be something that a regular medical doctor would do. And so that medical team will then say, no, you can't use the funds in that way. But I'm going to go like this.
Mhm.
What do you think? No, you don't think they will? Jan, you're down? You're hard thumbs down. I'm trying to be optimistic, and I'm here. Okay. I'm going to guess no, because their clinical team's not going to like it.
Okay,
That's my guess. Yeah. Next. Give me one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next up, we have, is it covered copays for floor time, the remainder not covered by insurance?
There is a way to do copays, but I've never heard of anyone having an easy time of it. And it's not in the self-determination program. It's outside of that. Let me look that up. Can we post it somewhere? I think it's in our DVU book, that there's a section on copays and co-insurance. And Judy is
Yes, I am back.
Judy's
Sorry,
back.
I'm eating dinner
I don't
from
remember what page it's on. I'll look while she's talking.
So, folks should know that in the directive, the DDS issued over kinds of services that you can purchase. What it says is that if you would be able to get co-pays paid for in the traditional system, you will continue to get them paid for in the self-determination program, but it'll be outside of your budget. So you don't actually have to use any of it. Shouldn't go in your spending plan, but you should still request it. Did you find the page by chance?
It's on page 135 in
Thank you,
DVU
darling.
new edition. It's costs for insurance, co-payments, deductibles, or co-insurance. Available but not included in budget calculation or spending plan. And it's the state of California and DDS policy. Okay. So if you don't already have a copy of Think Outside of the Box January 2023 edition, page 135 is worth it right there for many of us. Even if you don't open any other page. All right, thank you. That's a good one. Is it covered? Is that the last? Is it covered, Ed?
We have so many is it covered. Let me know when you'd like me to stop.
Give me one more, because I like threes.
Threes sounds good.
I like those.
Is it covered an IHSS advocate if generic resources are exhausted? Someone put this in chat, and someone also DM'd
sure.
this forever ago.
Yeah, advocates can be covered for sure.
Advocates for generic resources definitely can be covered, even though, by the way, the regional center is supposed to be doing that for you, but that's a whole other issue.
That's a
time.
That's a different training on a different day. Not about your spending plan. Okay. Mary Nahidi, go ahead.
Yes, talking about advocacy, are you guys talking about attorney fees or advocacy fees?
This was generic resource advocacy fees. Judy, did you have another?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you need to hire a lawyer to help you get SSI or something like that, you could put it in your budget, but that's going to eat a giant chunk of the spending plan up. So it may not be the best use of your money, because remember, if you're paying.
No, I'm talking
thousands of
about the
dollars-
attorney fees to get your services through a regional center, not through.
Yeah, so that's, so that is questionable whether that can be funded. It's a little bit, it's harder to make that case in the original self-determination law that we got passed. We did intend for that to happen. But unfortunately, when this federal waiver got approved, it got lopped out of there. So I think that's going to be a bit harder.
I thought it was part of the Lanterman Act.
To have attorneys paid for? No, it is not.
It's not?
No.
Okay. What about computer, if a person needs computer to be able to use for certain skills, to be employable, to be, what's the word that they use? Competitive employment skills. What's a good way to ask for that?
Judy, do you want me to?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay, so depending on the age of the person you're talking about, there are a couple different ways to do this. One is you could write this into your, if you have a goal, again, like all of it's related back to the goals, to be creative in our plans, in our spending plans, we have to have a goal that's connected. So the goal might be to purchase a computer, to learn computing skills in order to maximize employability, right? That's one way to do it. But if you're talking about someone who's in adulthood and qualifies for Department of Rehabilitation Services, DOR might be able to purchase that computer for you. So that would be a generic resource. It depends on the goals you're trying to meet. So there are ways. There are also, like, independent living centers might have tablets available, and that might be a generic resource. There are different ways to do that. So it really depends on what the goal is that you're stating inside of your person-centered plan, and then taking that goal and then seeing if out in the world there are those generic resources, or if you'll have to allocate funds from your spending plan to be able to do it. I have had clients do that, and that has worked. But I suspect that they are, that was a couple years ago already. So we'll see how that moves over time. Judy, did you have something to add to that? I see you're still unmuted.
Yeah. Now I'm actually so tired that I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Okay, perfect. So
Sorry.
if you think of it, just let us know.
I know.
We'll be here.
I remember. I want people to think of generic resources as a way to stretch your budget, and not to think of it as a burden like you do in the traditional system. It's like, here they are saying no to me. But in the self-determination program, you can think of, well, I need a computer. There are lots of ways to get computers that are paid for, not by the self-determination program. Let's think of those creative things to do that. The other thing that I just generally want to say, and I've said this many, many times, is stop thinking about things to buy with your self-determination budget. Those things, those items are more problematic than when you're actually buying services, activities, staff, classes, fun times in the community. That's really what self-determination is about. It's not about things. Now, that being said, there are lots of critical things in the world. For example, diapers for adults or for older children is something that it can become quite costly, and you might want to put in your budget. You may want to have an extra wheelchair that is your wheelchair that goes out, or an extra walker, you know, some sort of durable medical equipment, a second item of that, because your insurance maybe only pays for one. So those kinds of items are related to your disability. Or for example, let's say you have a computer, but you need a special keyboard or a special mouse because of your disability. That's the way you should be thinking about items that you're purchasing, that they're related to the person's disability and not necessarily related to general things in the world.
And Mary sent a follow-up about under the traditional method, and I don't think you're going to get any funds added to your budget for this computer. So what's going to happen is you could use funds that are for something else, like community integration or day program or whatever it was. You buy this computer the next year, that $2,132.24 is removed from your budget. And then next year, you're not going to have access to those funds. Now, if the computer is something that is needed for, like Judy was saying, those disability related events or trainings or whatever, that's one thing. But I suspect with a really good independent facilitator, you will be able to find generic resources that will cover the cost of some of these things as well. So thinking creatively, scholarships, thinking about those independent living centers, thinking about what is the goal. I mean, DOR, you say it's already been exhausted. Maybe your local community college has an option. I'm a professor at a community college, and we do computer checkouts for our students. I mean, there are lots of ways. Your local library might have a technology checkout program. There might be a class at your local library to teach these special skills. They might have a volunteer tutor who will sit down with you and help you learn the things that you're needing. And you could use the computer at the library while you're there. Then you're also practicing those communication skills. Now, of course, I don't know the situation for this particular individual, but those are some ideas of resources that are out there that we can all be using right now. Skills for videography. Okay, so the question is specific skills for videography and editing. I would enter a class that has videography and editing and let the class provide those materials, because you'll have a lab on campus to be able to do that if that's what you're doing, if it's at a certain place. Judy, go ahead.
I also want to point out that if you are buying things like items, though you run a danger, that the funding for that item will be pulled out of your budget for the following year because it was a one-time purchase.
Right.
Now, I think each regional center does it differently, and you can still make the case that there is a need there. However, when we were discussing many years ago what it meant to buy an item, DDS seemed to side on the case that if you bought, let's say, a widescreen TV to watch your Zoom meetings, that means that need has been met, and you're going to have to make the case for other needs to keep that kind of money in your budget. So I think that because of COVID, it's not clear where regional centers are going to come down on these items, because during COVID, since so many activities were closed down, a lot of people bought stuff just to make their lives fulfilled. Gyms were closed, so they bought a bike. Now that things have opened up, I think there's going to be a lot more tightening up of things that people buy, and to say there are other ways of getting those sources, like Kelly's been saying.
Thank you so much. Tim, did you have anything to add to that? I'll let you think. And then Ed, do you have any more thumbs up, thumbs downs for me? Because those are I love those.
So many.
Yay!
Is
Okay.
it covered? Service dog. Hold on, sorry.
Training?
Service dog training to train your own dog to be a service dog.
Sure. If it's a goal in your person-centered plan that is allowable, and that's actually written down in, I want to say 320 in community living supports. In that definition area, I'm pretty sure service dog's even in there. Training of your own animal for a service dog, 320. Carla.
Sick. Awesome.
I will find it and try to remember to send it to you if I'm struggling.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Give me one more.
One more. Hold on. Oh, I had it just a second ago. Insurance for staff, like health and dental.
Health and dental for staff. I know that there's got to be a way. If there's a way to do it, there's got to be. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, Tim and Judy both have more information than I do there.
It's the same code as your staff salaries because it's just considered staff benefits. So whatever code you're using for your staff, which is usually community integration supports, I provide health insurance for all of my son's staff. Well, I don't. Self-determination does. So you definitely can do it.
Probably 320. They're leaning towards using 320 for staff because anybody who's both at your home and out in the community is using 320 now instead of 331. But yes, the rest of it, they would only buy a service dog, but not training. That's fascinating, but not accurate. They should not have done that to you. I've got, I'll find that more service dog. Tim, go ahead.
In my spending plan, I only have 2 items on I need. The annual subscription app to schedule my staff and PPE, like gloves for my care. I don't buy random items that I don't need.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have learned with the years that we're doing this, that it's just easier to do services and supports than it is to do stuff. Stuff is the S we don't bother with anymore. We do, like, I want to make sure my staff is reliable, paid on time, and that they're paid a wage and makes it possible for them to continue working with my family. Those are like by far the most important things to us, are those being creative with staff. And so that we can do things out in the community and not lose my kid. I mean, things like, I need another set of hands. Maybe some of you don't, but I do. All right. I see Behnaz has another question and I love her name. So I want her to say something again.
Okay. Hi, thanks for taking my second question.
Sure.
So, you know, as part of our budget, so my son had a floor time assessment before we started SDP. And so that was part of our budget. And our budget got certified. And now that I submitted like the spending plan for review, I got feedback that said funds that were for the floor time assessment cannot be used for non-clinical items. But I'm just so confused. I don't know what I can use it for. And I didn't realize, I thought once we have our budget, then as long as it meets the like criteria, I could use it on whatever I choose. So that's what I wrote back to the service coordinator, because I'm like, I don't understand. So I don't, am I wrong? Is there something I'm missing?
You are correct.
Okay. So why did they say that? I don't even understand. I honestly didn't even understand what you were saying.
Judy, go ahead.
So I'm so glad you asked this question because I really wanted to get a chance to say this. There is no line between what's in your budget and what's in your spending plan. The line exists with what are your goals in your IPP and what is in your spending plan. That is the line. So if your regional center is saying something like, oh, you have floor time in there and therefore you're spending it on meditation and gymnastics, that's not the same thing. They're wrong. As long as you are meeting those behavioral goals that would have existed if you had gotten floor time. That being said, many regional centers are doing it wrong. And every time this happens, we need to complain to DDS, to the SDP ombudsperson. Because
Okay.
if you read DDS's directives on spending plans, it very specifically makes that point, that there is no direct line. So they are wrong. But let me ask you this, Banaz, are you, are behavioral, is there a behavioral goal in the IPP? And are you addressing that? in the spending plan?
Yeah. Hold on. God. Sorry, my son's acting up. Yeah, so like social skills, social communication, those are his major goals.
Okay, and so in your spending plan, are you addressing those goals with certain?
Yeah,
things?
that's most of the stuff that's on there. It's all like social skills, communication skills. That's the majority of things on there. So that's why I was like, I didn't understand. So that's what I wrote back. I said I was under the impression that, you know, the ideal of self-determination is for us to be able to choose things that will meet his IPP and his PCP goals. And that's all I said.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, because I was just so confused. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Natalie.
Hi, I just have my independent facilitator has done something with me for the gym membership, which was really very smart. If the gym has like a website and a portal to pay on, so the FMS can pay directly to them. They don't have to be back and forth emails or communication.
That it really depends on your FMS, which one, how they're going to do that. Tim, sorry.
They just go on the website for the gym, and you know, sometimes we can pay online, for example. Yes. And they just go on the FMS. Sorry, the FMS go on the website and just pay them directly.
Right. And some FMSs are happy to do that, no problem. And some FMSs want to pay for a year or 6 months at a time instead. And so I'm glad it works for your FMS. That's really good. It makes it a lot easier. Some FMSs won't do it quite the same way, but there are ways to do that. So thank you for sharing that. That's really important. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. I appreciate that. All right, let's see here. Ed, we could take a couple more questions, can't we?
We sure can.
Let's do it.
Let's do a couple of rounds of this. Is it covered a medical bed if client struggles with sleep due to a medical condition?
Have generic resources already been exhausted?
Doesn't mention.
Okay, so if your insurance would cover the durable medical equipment, I would get a denial from your insurance. I'd get a doctor's note to prove that it's important to have. The regional center will almost certainly send it to their clinical team. The clinical team will determine whether or not it's a reasonable request or if they would cover it. That doesn't mean they should, just means that that's probably what will happen. And then if you have a goal to improve sleep with appropriate support, and that's the way to meet that goal, it seems like it would be allowed, but if I'm wrong, please correct me.
So regional centers should not be sending each specific item to a clinical team.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're not doing that.
Right.
But they should not be doing that. As Kelly said in her great presentation, there's only a few things that regional centers are supposed to review. Number one, are you included in the community? Okay, you're in your home. That's the community with a bed. Number two, is it in the waiver? I'm going to say durable healthcare equipment is definitely in the waiver. And number three, did you try to get generic resources like the insurance to pay for it? And then if they denied it, the regional center should not be sending anything to a clinical team.
Right. That doesn't mean it's not happening, like Judy said, but just means that that's likely what, it depends on your regional center. Some will receive that the denial and they'll be fine. And they'll just move on with the world. But you always have to try that generic resource first. If your insurance covers it, that's what's going to cover it.
Kelly, if you don't mind, we actually have Alex Marquez, who's the head of the self-determination program at Westside. And since this is a Westside event, I'm not sure, Alex, if you're in a place to introduce yourself to the community, since this is supposed to be for, I mean, even though I know people are from all over the state, we want to make sure that the Westside clients are treated with extra special treatments. Alex, are you available?
Sure, I sure am. One moment here.
Sorry to do this as a surprise to you.
No, that's okay. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Marquez. Thank you, Judy, for the introductions. I am one of, thank you for the comments, Caroline. I am one of 3 participant choice specialists at Westside Regional Center. And, we're here to support all our participants, including the community independent facilitators in implementing self-determination at Westside. So if ever, the community, you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to myself, to your service coordinator, and the rest of the SDP team here at Westside.
Thanks, Alex. Alex has been very accessible to the community, everybody. So I don't know, Alex, if you feel comfortable putting your email address in the chat. And if people have any concerns, these are only for Westside Regional Center clients. Please email Alex or maybe your service coordinator and Alex. Okay. Thanks, Alex.
Ed, is there any chance we have one more, is it covered question?
We sure do. Synagogue dues, if there is a PCP goal to maintain a Jewish identity.
Interesting.
Oh, I have not heard that one before.
That's a new one. Well, let me think about it in this way. I would like to, I'm not affiliated with any religious group, but I do. Is it possible that the dues are required in order to participate in any of the events that would be like community integration events? Okay, we're kind of stretching here because this isn't really disability related. It's cultural and ethnicity, and identity related. So if the goal was, I could see this being allowable. I could see my goal is to spend more time with my community. And in order to do so, these are this has to happen. And it helps me practice my adaptive skills, or it helps me be better integrated into the community. Those are disability connected goals. And the way to do this is to pay the dues for my synagogue. And so I'm participating in doing those things. That might work. I suspect for identity, they're going to say that's not disability related, unless you're going to argue that your disability identity is Judaism specific. And I don't think that you can do that, although maybe my friend Judy has a different idea.
So
I'm stretching here.
Yeah, the point of the self-determination program is for you to get support to fully participate in the community. And where there are barriers to participation, the self-determination program can help you. So in this circumstance, I would say, instead of trying to make a probably very difficult argument to pay the dues of the synagogue, I would say that you should hire a person who drives you to synagogue, who helps integrate you into the programs. Especially since, by the way, most synagogues have a sliding fee scale. I know most churches, they have no fee at all, but I'm Jewish. I can tell you that some synagogues charge thousands of dollars a year to be a member. But as a person with a disability, they're generally low income or very poor. And the sliding scale might put you at a free membership. And by the way, you don't have to be a member of a synagogue to go to activities there. So I would, Joanne, is this your question? Okay, go ahead, Joanne.
And we are just presenting the PCP to our regional center on March 20th. So we're just getting, I mean, we're confirming that date. So it's not obviously it's not a IPP goal to maintain her Jewish identity. So, but I think, and again, it's just to be an active member. I mean, you're part of the community is to participate as a member, but absolutely sliding scale type of situation could exist as she transitions into her community, because that is going to be part of her community.
Right. Thanks, Joanne.
That was a great, thank you for your answer. Helpful.
All right, let's get a good question from Pam. Pam Bean, go ahead.
Hi, I had a question. I'm new to doing the SDP program, and I just want to clarify my daughter's IPP goals. They need to match the goals that the SDP program is going to have.
Your self-determination program, person-centered planning goals should be driving what's in your IPP. So sometimes your person-centered goals are not related to, like, the regional center struggles to understand how to add it in because they're really disability focused. That's what they do. Sometimes the goals are like, my daughter had a goal of being an American Ninja Warrior, and that was not really disability specific. That was just a dream. And then we talked about the objectives and the things that would get her towards that direction. So building her stamina, working on adaptive skills, working on, all the parts that I could find in American Ninja Warrior land, and I kind of combined them that way. But the PCP goals that are connected to disability are the ones that you're going to be funding with that spending plan. So your IPP is that regional center specific document. Very, they say it's person-centered, but typically it's a checkbox. We know what that one looks like. What you want to have happen is for the goals that you've created in your person-centered plan to be in that IPP and be the goals from now on, so that you can take those goals and put them into that spending plan. Does that kind of help see where that connection is?
Yes. So when would be the time to change the IPP goals? After you do the person-centered plan?
So I would do both are supposed to be living documents. I like to do the person-centered plan first and then do the IPP, because I feel like that really drives the direction of that meeting and the services and supports that are going to be needed for the coming year. But there's no wrong way to do a person-centered plan except for to not do one. What you really want to do is make sure that those goals are really about what that person wants and not what about I want as a mom or what the regional center wants as a supervisor of goals, but really what, in my case, my daughter Amelia wants in her life, right? So I find ways to make those goals connect to the services and supports that she needs. And I kind of like to work at it from both directions. If I think, oh, this would be great for Amelia for X, Y, or Z, then I re-envision how I want to word that goal and I make it match. In teaching, we call it beginning with the end in mind. This is where I want to get to, but I'm going to build towards that goal with a bunch of little steps. And so those are the pieces of the goal that I put in there so that it matches the service and support as well. So it comes both directions.
Okay, so it is okay then to do the person-centered plan first and work backwards. I'm only asking because I'm actually in the middle of a revision of her IPP that came out last month, and I think I might give my CVRC worker a stroke if I tell him, I'd like to change some of these things when I just did that to him.
Well, I think if your IPP does not reflect what you've said in the meetings, you want to make sure that all of your unmet needs are listed in there. All of your things that are changes in circumstances, all of those things should be documented in that IPP. And then you can move forward with your person-centered plan next.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, let me see where Ed is. Ed?
So
Is it covered?
We have another question. Is it covered? Participating in fundraiser walks with appropriate supports.
You can participate in anything you want to, but you're not going to pay for the fundraiser. You can have your community living coach be there with you, but you're not donating funds from your self-determination program into that. That won't work. No.
Remember, guys, it's about your disability or your child's disability. So participating in the walk may require a person to support that individual to participate in the walk.
Yes.
Absolutely. For sure. That's phenomenal that you're doing that. But to actually pay the registration fee, that has nothing to do with the person's disability.
Correct.
So that's in fact the reason why they took the entertainment stuff off the table.
Yeah.
That no Disneyland passes, but if you want to hire a person to take you to Disneyland and be with you in Disneyland, that can go in your spending plan. No tickets to a concert, but if you need someone to drive you to the concert and staff you at the concert, that's completely allowed. So remember, it's about the person's disability integrating into the community.
Great. All right, Ed.
Another, is it covered? I just had it, one moment. This is a really good one. Parent or family training to support somebody with a disability. Is that covered?
Yes.
I can read it to you directly from the federal waiver. Hold on, I just looking at it a few minutes ago. I know it's under P. So if you have our little book, you can see that it is.
Sorry, you can't see it because
No, that's okay. It is. Well, first of all, did you know that you can train and provide counseling services for unpaid caregivers, including parents, neighbors, friends, on how to be natural supports? Think about that, folks. Hold on. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. Hold on. Why am I not finding this in the right place? There it is. It's on page 103 of the book, and it's called Family Consumer Training. It's training services as needed in conjunction with extended state plan services in this waiver, which is basically just saying that if there's anything that is in your IPP that requires training, you should be able to get that. It includes training by licensed providers to maintain or enhance the long-term impact of treatment provided. Treatment is another word for services. It includes support or counseling for the consumer and or family to ensure proper understanding of the services and supports, proper understanding of supports needed in the home environment. And by the way, it also includes attending like self-determination conferences and other kinds of activities.
Thank you so much. I need to answer Beth's question about Ninja Warrior wording. For me, it does go in there because that's her real goal. There's no joke. This girl wants to be on American Ninja Warrior, and I don't know how we're going to get there, but it's no, she could watch this show forever. But then when
Kelly's daughter very well, and she is my favorite kid from my friend Kelly. I have a hard time believing that Amelia will ever be less active in her life.
Thank you, American Ninja Warrior. There we go. Oh, thank you. If we're in Santa Ana, we should probably go there. We have a Ninja Warrior course that I'm going to be putting into her plan, but it'll be something else for her as well. Just she loves to climb everything, and it's wow. I never knew in a million years that this is how my life was going to be. If you told me this is what I'd be doing 15 years ago, I would have said you're lying. Sometimes best laid plans subject to change, right? Yep. So do we have kids parkour there? We have a gym by us that loves to do this as well. And I just, every time I see those little kids climb up that wall, I just think, oh my God, their poor mom. I'm so sorry that your kids do that, but they look like they're in great shape, so they're probably just fine. Ed, I think we have time for one more of your, is it covered? And then I can get to Daniel as well, I think.
Okay, last, is it covered? Don't tell me that I've gone through them all. Here's a kind of, is it covered?
Okay.
What if the school system provides speech services, but they suck at providing quality therapy? Could quality therapy be covered?
Define quality. I'm going to go with no. If you don't like it, it doesn't mean they're not covering it. It's not de minimis. It's not like they're getting no educational benefit or no therapeutic benefit. I like the Zoo Pass Science Center Discovery Cube. That's going to be called entertainment, right, Judy?
Yeah, for sure. Zoo Pass is not going to work. Let me just talk about therapies that should be provided by generic resources, but creative ways. This is a creative thing, a creative way to think about it. So, my son had this amazing speech therapist when he was a kid, and she did lots of things besides speech therapy with him. She would go out in the community with him and did tons of community integration. So one way to think about this as well is to think about, what other kinds of supports can folks provide. Now, if you're talking about a speech therapist where you go sit in an office, sit at a table, that's not going to get covered. But if you, for example, we had behavioral therapists who were helping my son get prepared for work, for employment someday. And so that was more job coaching and job development than it was behavioral therapy. Yes. So you want to think outside the box a little bit on this stuff. But if you're looking for really traditional therapies and generic resources have not been exhausted, then it's going to be a problem.
And I wanted to jump on there and add to that. We're actually starting a friend group that's going to be monitored by a communication coach who happens to be an SLP, but in this capacity, she's going to be the communication coach. And she helps all the kids talk to each other. Everybody gets to say what they want to say. They play games together. It's this community integration time, and it's like win, 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 win. They're just everybody's learning together. They're happy. They're making, it's a good use of internet instead of my kid watching YouTube too much. It's good times. So just because YouTube is a generic resource doesn't mean I want her using it all the time. Ew. Daniel, go ahead. I see you can unmute. Hopefully you can unmute yourself.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
So my question is about the talking about what the disabled person wants as opposed to what the parents want for them, or what the regional center might project for what they want or need.
Sure.
Because in our case with our daughter, it's very difficult for her to articulate that due to her disability, like a severe communication disability and autism. So there's a lot of trying to figure it out. And so my question is there some kind of way of evidencing what is it that this person wants? I mean, you can say, oh, when they do this, they're always smiling and laughing. So I just wondered if there are specific things that you have in your repertoire that are typically used as evidence that this shows that that's what this person wants.
I would use whatever works for her. She tells you, I mean, by her behavior, what she loves and what she doesn't, right?
To a certain extent, but I think also there's arguments, oh, well, she's just doing what is expected of her. She's just doing what people think that they want her to do.
That's
That kind of thing.
generous. My kids never do what I want them to do. I think that's interesting that others would think that. But Judy, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is actually something that our organization, Disability Voices United, is a specialist in. We have done several SDP Connects and Communication Access Connects, Connect meetings on this very topic. Tim is a specialist on this, and his co-director, Darlene Hansen, is a speech and language pathologist who's also an expert on this. So I just put in the chat our interchange. So if you go into that, you'll see we have both a self-determination interchange and a communication access interchange. In there, you want to look up the SDP Connects and Communication Access Connects, and look at this various topics and find the ones that exist on people who are non or minimally speaking and how they communicate preferences. And if you end up having any issues with your regional center around that, please send them these YouTube videos as well for them to understand that behavior is communication, and that there are definitely ways for people to express their preferences, even if they're not able to.
Daniel, that was a wonderful question. Thank you
Great.
so much for asking it. It's incredibly important because our communication it's what makes us human, right? It's how we experience the world and how we make sure that people know what we're thinking. And I'm really grateful to Disability Voices United for running those communication access Connect events. And I hope that they're a great resource for you. Friends, you have spent a wonderful 2 hours with us tonight. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I'm so grateful to Westside Regional Center's local advisory committee for their generous offering to let us come and do trainings with you. Next week, we will have, and actually, let me put this in the chat for you really quickly.
While you're doing that, Kelly, while you're focusing on that, I just want to thank Carla Lehman, who is the chair of the local advisory committee, who's been here the whole time. Carla, did you just want to say a quick hi, or are you in a place to be able to do that? Oh, I have to find you to unmute you.
Okay, so just so you know, the document I just put into the chat has the registration for next week's understanding or fixing barriers, being creative with barriers presentation. If you're willing to come back and meet with us again next week, we'd love to see your beautiful faces again. Thank you so much for everything. And go ahead, Carla. Carla, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and thank you for this training is amazing. I wanted this so much, so I'm so happy that we can make it happen. And then please everybody come to the one next week, and then we're gonna have a third one and a fourth one. So everybody come, and also come to the committee, please, and participate because we need you. Thank you.
Carla, what's the date of your next meeting?
Yes, it's always the second Tuesday of the month, and it's at 6 p.m. So I usually put it in the Facebook group for state council, the self-determination group. I always put it there. So yes, everybody come. Thank you.
And one last thank you to Jane Porkoff, who is the executive director. I'm a Westside person.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you, Jane, so much. So thanks, everybody. We have a recording of this. We will post it on our YouTube channel and probably on our SDP Connect. We will also be providing it to Westside Regional Center for them to put on their own website. So thank you all for joining us. Wow, 150 people were here for 2 hours. That's amazing.
You guys are amazing. Thank you. Enjoy your families. Have a wonderful night.
Bye-bye.
Take good care. See you next week.